Welcome back to Royals Weekly. I am your host, Marcus Mead, and joining me as always, Arch Manning's personal quarterback coach / spiritual shaman, my brother Mike.
If I was quarterback coaching that kid, he'd have been a receiver or a tight end like 2 years ago. All right. I'm not taking credit for that. Did you see the super close up they did of that sidearm throw he put out to that guy, that wide open guy? He looked like Uncle Rico, is what he looked like.
Boy, did it look like his first time doing that.
Yikes. That was just.
Yeah, he looked like somebody told me Patrick Mahomes does this. Let me just try it out right out of here, game one.
It
was a rough weekend for him.
Got out the bus looking like Leroy Manning or friggin' like, I don't know, Uncle Gus Manning off the third removed
Heisman
family
front
tree.
runner, I'll tell you that. And so, hope we'll see what he does in his next outing. This is a baseball podcast, though, so we're going to talk about baseball for the rest of the episode here. Promises. On this week's episode, we're going to actually look back at what was like a 500 so week for the Royals, which maybe isn't great at this time of year. We're going to focus in on what the Royals should be doing or should do with this pitching staff for the rest of the season. Things are getting a little more complicated. Roster expand. They look like they're going through some struggles on this pitching staff. What should they do to help make that better in September? And then we're going to preview this week's games. Big homestand, Angels and Twins. Mike and I are going to go out to one of those games. That's going to be a ton of fun. Do us a favor, though. Make sure you're subscribed to the Royals Weekly Substack. I put out an awesome post today talking about Jac Caglianone, talking about Seth Lugo, talking about replacements for him and things like that. Just Mike puts out an episode on his own every week. We put out a midweek episode. Ton of value for $5 a month for that Royals Weekly Substack. royalsweekly.substack.com. Make sure you're checking that out if you're interested in more content. Also, make sure you're rating and reviewing us on all the podcast platforms. We love reading those Apple Podcast reviews here on the episode. Haven't gotten one in a few weeks now. Love it if you go ahead and leave one. If you don't have an iPhone, steal somebody's iPhone and then write a review for Royals Weekly on it before the cops catch you. Okay, that's sort of a game you can play. All right, that'll be a lot of fun. Royals Weekly is brought to you by Delete Me. Delete Me makes it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online at a time when surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everyone vulnerable. I myself, super paranoid, don't like my information on the internet. I'm all about protecting my data. I don't want anybody to know my name. I don't want anybody to know my phone number. Don't want any email. I want to be, not very present, not very visible.
Jason Bourne, but better.
Yeah, Jason Bourne, but better at it. That's what I want to do. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now at a special discount for our listeners. Today, get 20% off your Delete Me plan by texting HIT, that's HIT, to 64000. The only way to get that 20% off is to text HIT, HIT, to 64000. That's HIT to 64000. Message and data rates may apply. That's a new ad sponsor we have. We have to read that. We're supposed to riff in the middle there. There's also a long list of things we're not supposed to say for legal reasons. Should have read those to you beforehand, but that didn't happen. We'll start the review of last week with roster news. There wasn't much to roster news until about 30 minutes ago. Then we got some roster news as the Royals sort of made an announcement about what they were doing to expand the roster on September 1st. The Royals are calling up, or I should say reinstating Jac Caglianone. That was a pretty expected move. They're bringing up Carter Jensen, and they're also bringing up Luinder Avila. Now, we'll see how they make room on the 26-man for all three of them. Somebody's got to get out of there if they're all three going to go to the Major League roster. But the big news there is Carter Jensen is coming to Major League Baseball alongside Jac Caglianone. Mike, what are your thoughts on what is a pretty quick promotion for Carter Jensen?
Well, if you're asking me, is it fun? It's fun. That's fun. I want to see Carter Jensen. I want to see Jac Caglianone. Heck, I want to see Luinder Avila more than what we saw him, the one inning we saw him earlier this year. But do I like it as a move for the development of Carter Jensen? No. You know that. I'm a guy who I want to see you prove it in AAA. And I know there's a big difference between AAA and Major League Baseball. I understand that. And so there's some people who will say, well, you hit in AAA, you get your chance immediately in the majors because it's going to be so different anyway. There's going to be a massive adjustment either way, right? I'm not like that. I say keep them in AAA. What's Carter Jensen going to do for you in the month of September? Is there a chance? Yes, he's your best chance at getting somebody who can help boost a lineup significantly, but it also could do things to his development that you don't want long term, because you really need Carter Jensen in 2026, and 2027 is when you need Carter Jensen. You don't need him in the September when your chances of being successful, even making the playoffs, are low, and being successful are really low.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised Jensen is coming up with Caglianone. I think there's an argument to be made that Caglianone shouldn't come up either, right? Like,
yeah,
but,
for sure. I would completely understand that if they made that choice.
It's funny because I see so many people being like, yeah, bring up Jac Caglianone. He's ready. And these are the same people who said he was ready after 12 games in AAA. And guess what? He was not, right? Like, he very clearly wasn't. And it's wild to me that they're not more cautious this time around, honestly. Like, I get it. You want enthusiasm and all that, but like, how you should at least have more pause. You should use more hedging language. You should, you know what I'm saying? Like, show some humility with the fact that, like, no, all the people like pumping the hype train to 11, you know, they were wrong with the last time. You got to own that, you know, like, but they're not doing it anyway. The Jensen thing is interesting in part because actually there's lots of interesting things about it, but one of the interesting things about it is this is a ton of left-handed hitters to bring up, right? Where's Jensen exactly going to play, and how often? How often are both of these guys going to play? Like, obviously,
so you have to assume Mailey's the one going down, because somebody has to come down. Jac Caglianone and Carter Jensen cannot both go up there and just nothing happen. So maybe I would assume then Luke Mailey is the guy that comes down, or do you carry 3 catchers and expect to be able to hit Carter Jensen frequently enough?
No, seems tough to carry 3 catchers in that situation. I mean, I know you have a 28-man roster now, but it seems tough to carry 3 catchers in that situation. I guess the only other option I can really think of is Nick Lofton comes down, which is possible.
Could go down.
He could, but I don't think they're going to give up the only backup center fielder they have. You know, like, nobody else really plays center field, and so, you know, I don't know what they're going to do if they don't have Tolbert. And so I think Lofton most likely to come down because somebody's got to. But that gives you, like, just a lineup stacked full of left-handed hitters, which I know they're going to do against righties. But what happens when they got to face a lefty? You know, like, and, you know, it's just
they did so well against that lefty today, though.
Yeah, well, nobody does well against that lefty. But Jensen seems like he's maybe more capable of making that transition than Jac Caglianone. A better approach at the plate, swings at bad pitches less often, and so maybe they're counting on that as a much more smooth transition than Caglianone. Otherwise, you can't imagine why they would pull the same move with Jensen that they pulled with Caglianone, the quick promotion. Like, surely they would have more caution if they thought, you know, let's be cautious here. Surely they think they can get Jensen playing time, and surely they think that he'll have a smoother transition than Caglianone did.
Well, and one more thing for this, and this is actually maybe against my feelings about this. They may be thinking this is a move for 26.
Right.
Let's get Jensen up here now, so we know what we have, and he'll get an off season of a plan that is based on actual major league data and not just what we think he needs to work on, you know? And so I understand that maybe as a play, but it's going to create some weirdness because not a lot of at-bats to go around in that situation.
Yeah. And, you know, part of me also wonders to what degree this is a move to help increase the productivity of Salvador Perez, because he has been so much worse since Freddie Freeman got traded because he's carrying so much more of the catching load. If Jensen comes up, I mean, it makes absolutely no sense to bring Jensen up to catch once a week, right? Like, you don't want Carter Jensen playing 1 time a week. Like, you want him playing 5 times a week.
He needs to
minimum, minimum. He's got to play 5 times, whether that's catching 3 days, DHing 2, catching 4, DHing 1, whatever. He's got to play 5 times a week. Same with Caglianone. You can't have a prospect of his caliber just chilling for a month, right? Like, he's got to play. They both got to play. And so that means get used to seeing them, I guess, because they got to play. There were a couple other tidbits of roster news. We saw Steven Kolek promoted for 1 start. He made a start on Saturday and then was promptly demoted to
Only win of the series, baby.
To bring Michael Wacha back from the paternity list. Mike, what are your thoughts on seeing Stephen Kolek for the first time in Major League Baseball?
I was excited because,
or I should say, with the Royals. He has played.
He was with the Padres. He had a lot of Major League time this year, actually, with the Padres. I was excited because I've watched him pitch, like clips of him pitching, but I've never actually seen him pitch a full game before. And it was exactly what I thought it was going to be. You know, like you have that image of a guy in your head. Like I think that was exactly what I thought Stephen Kolek was. The two-seamer that helps him get a lot of ground balls, not as much swing and miss as you would probably like. But if his command is good enough, if he's not leaving that sinker back over the middle, he's going to be able to give you a good, solid start. I always thought good back-end guy or 6th, 7th guy in rotation. I think that's kind of what he showed he can be. What he did, and that's not just now. It's what he showed he could be in San Diego too.
Yeah, I think of that as much more 6th, 7th guy in the rotation than 5th guy, because that lack of swing and miss really scares me. They put a lot of balls in play hard against Kolek. A lot of them were ground balls, which is good. That's what you want. You want ground balls, but they put quite a few balls in play really hard against him. And eventually those start to get through and you start to give up quite a few runs, which is what he was doing in AAA. It was nice to see. For a spot start, he'll do. You know, a great job going out there putting up. And the Royals have a good enough infield defense that you can have Kolek be that guy for you. Like, you're not going to ask him to be anything more than what he was on Saturday, which was great. You know, he's 6 innings, I think 1 earned run, and they ended up getting the win that game, right? Like, but I don't see him in the same tiers as guys like Bergert, Cameron, you know, the guys who are really going to be competing for rotation spots. I don't think he's moved into that realm for me. Another guy was back up in Major League Baseball after a long stint on the IL, many rehab assignments and then re-injuries and stuff like that. The Royals activated Michael Massey back to the 26-man roster and optioned outfielder John Rave. Mike, what are your thoughts on getting Massey back into the Major League lineup and sending John Rave back to Omaha?
Well, I'm still skeptical on Massey. He did have a good week, but he's had good weeks in the past. I don't know that I'm seeing that bats be all that different is probably what makes me skeptical. I still think he's swinging too much. He's down 0-2 way too often. But I digress on that. Hopefully he takes advantage of his opportunity. Optioning John Rave, I thought that makes sense. John Rave is, like I've said in the past, a ceiling of a 4th outfielder, and he wasn't giving you a whole lot at the plate. And so when John Rave also swings too much and is too aggressive and can't take a walk really, and doesn't just have legit power, doesn't play center field. Like, there's way too many, like, he doesn't do this on his list to stay in Major League Baseball right now.
Yeah, that's and you're hoping that Massey can sort of, if he has that better approach, which he hasn't really necessarily shown in the at-bats he's had so far, but then you hope he can get back to something reasonably close to what he was last year in terms of offensive production for the Royals, right? The injury question mark will always linger over him. Like, I don't think any team's going to trust him to play 80% of games moving forward, not even the Royals, right? But
the back is a chronic thing. We don't even know
it's
how
a chronic
bad that
thing.
is.
we don't know what's going on with him back wise, injury wise. But he has shown I think he's playing left field pretty well. I think he plays second base pretty well. Made a really good play there in Kolek's start. If you can count on a more professional plate appearance from him, you have somebody who has the makings of a valuable 25th, 26th man on the roster, I think. For Rave, I'm a little surprised. Well, let's say this. The Royals, maybe not the best team for John Rave. I think another team would value him more as a 24th through 26th guy on the roster, because he would have maybe a little bit. They're in some ways more flush with like 4th outfielders than they would want to be, and with outfielders who just aren't getting it done in the corners, so they have like 1,000 of them. And so this roster may not be the best roster for John Rave. He didn't perform offensively like he needed to stick in Major League Baseball, but that doesn't mean I don't think any Major League team could get value out of him, because I think there are some that could. On the field last week, the Royals found a way to break even, which at this point in the season isn't a great thing. They took 2 of 3 from the lowly White Sox in Chicago before dropping 2 of 3 to the class of the AL Central, the Detroit Tigers. That brings their overall record to 70-67. They are 3 games out of the wild card, and the Texas Rangers have moved between them and the Seattle Mariners at this point. Mike, the Royals probably needed to win at least one more game this week. Why didn't they get that done?
Well, because they missed 2 opportunities. They missed 2 beautiful opportunities to get wins. And you understand the first one because, they're coming off that string of games where they just didn't get a day off. And they go into that White Sox series and look uninspired, I guess is a word for it. And so they missed that opportunity to win that game and get the sweep. And then they miss another opportunity in game 1 against the Tigers when you're going up against Chris Paddock, a guy that you are on in the first inning. You score 3 off of him. You got him on the ropes in the second, and you get nothing else out of Chris Paddock. That's insane. Like, you're not going to take advantage of those opportunities. That's how you lose a playoff race. That's how you lose out on the playoffs. So it hurts, and luckily there's still more time for them to take advantage of opportunities, but those are going to become short supply real soon.
Sun's getting low. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Mm-hmm.
The Lugo outing really hurt them. I think that was the Paddock outing too, right? Like game 1 was Lugo Paddock.
I think so.
It was. That really hurt them. He gave up 4 in like 3 1/3, and then their bats going dormant after that first inning against Paddock. I mean, in the Mike's Dropped episode I did last week previewing this series, I mentioned, hey, you have got to make hay against Jack Flaherty and Chris Paddock because that's your best opportunity in this series, right? You're not going to have a great day against Tarik Skubal. Nobody does. And so get something against those guys. Give yourself the best chance possible, and they just couldn't get it done in game 1. It was close, but they just couldn't get it done. And Lugo didn't help anything with a very poor outing again.
Yeah, the walks, the command, just right in the middle.
You'll
of the plate
remember
on some of that stuff.
You'll remember before the trade deadline, what we said was if they're going to try and do this thing, if they're going to have any chance on this remote 10% chance they got, this pitching cannot fall apart as the offense ascends. Like, they have to stay rock solid in the rotation, which got real difficult when they started taking injuries. And Lugo just hasn't looked the same since he came back from his, Despite the 500 record, there were some strong performers out there, so we should give them recognition. Mike, tell us about your Polish strong performer from last week.
This is actually kind of a tough one because there were several hitters that had solid weeks, but I went with Mike Yastrzemski just because of how unbelievable I think this situation is for him. Like, this is the perfect thing for him to be doing, and he's showing it. Like, week after week.
He's making himself money right now.
He's 7 of 18 this week, 5 runs, which for a leadoff hitter you'll love, 3 doubles, 2 home runs, and 4 RBI. Some team's going to have him leading off next year. That's got to happen, right? He's too valuable doing it right now for the Royals. Hell, it might be the Royals. And so I'm just been really impressed with him. I think it's the reason that this team has him coming in and being able to fill this role is one of the reasons the Royals still have a shot at a playoff spot. He has transformed this offense in a sense from a guy who was in the journeyman twilight years of a pretty mediocre career. It's just awesome to see. And that's exactly the role that he needs.
Yeah, it's nice to see. And you're right. Without him in this offense's ascent, we're the Minnesota Twins right now, or we are the Cleveland Guardians at best. We're sinking away from this playoff race. Another guy who has really been a boost. This is for the pitching staff, really for the last 4 months, basically. I wanted to give him this because he was pretty good this week, but it's a kind of a cumulative thing. Taylor Clark has been an excellent signing for this bullpen and has just gone out and delivered as one of the 6th, 7th guys out of the bullpen, has delivered in such a big way repeatedly, especially as they've taken injuries over and over again. Last week, he went 4 innings pitched, which is quite a few innings for a reliever to throw in 1 week. 1 earned run, that was on a home run, solo home run. 0 walks and 4 strikeouts. I don't feel shaky when Taylor Clark comes into the game anymore. Even though he's still basically their 6th guy out of the bullpen, I'm not too terribly worried when he comes in because he's just out there throwing that slider, Sinkers in, sliders away, over and over and over again until the guy decides to swing. Working. Mike, it wasn't all sunshine, rainbows, and delicious gravy. Who was the weak performer for you last week?
Well, I went with Noah Cameron, more for like, I think we need to talk about Noah Cameron kind of a thing, not actually knowing what the Spotlight segment was going to be about. So we'll probably talk about him quite a bit in that segment. But 5 innings pitched, 8 hits, 6 earned runs. He's got a 348 batting average against right now.
Through last week or cumulative?
Just last week. Just last week.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just last week. So guys were on him, right? And we're getting to a point where he has now pitched quite a bit. And first off, let's reiterate, friend of the show. We want nothing great.
Friend of the show. Yeah.
Nothing but great things for St. Joe's.
Cy Young Award for Noah Cameron.
I mean, AL Rookie of the Year?
I mean, I think he deserves a top 3 finish.
Yeah, for sure. The guy has been fantastic. But if it feels like his arm is starting to get a little bit tired, and you're not seeing it in velocity or anything like that. The velocity's not dipping or anything. The command is especially with the off-speed stuff, is coming right to the middle of the plate. And guys are just sitting back waiting to hit a changeup that floats in the middle or the curveball that doesn't have quite as much bite to it, you know? And so, yeah, I think some sort of plan for Noah Cameron to maybe get an extra day wouldn't hurt.
Well, they skipped him his last start. That was the Colic start.
No, I meant like somebody fills in for him. Sorry, get it one time through the rotation. Skip a time through the rotation.
That's what they did. He was supposed to pitch on Saturday. That was Colic's start. They skipped him. They haven't said anything about like an IL stint or anything like that. So I guess we're left to assume that it's just to help him, get through some fatigue or rest a little bit and maybe just not accumulate so many innings. So we'll see if we hear anything about that and if he ends up making his next start. My weak performer for this week is another guy who's dealing, I think, with some fatigue, energy level issues, and that's Salvador Perez. Now, he's like 36, so, that's different. But he went 2 for 22 last week, 1 double, 1 home run, 0 walks, 3 strikeouts. The numbers have been bad offensively since Fermin went away, and there were people who were worried that this would happen, that because Perez was going to have to catch more, his offense would start to wane. It's like a very consistent pattern that we've seen from him. The more he has to catch, the more difficult the more struggle he has offensively, which is why I hope for September they're hoping to give Carter Jensen a big chunk of that catching role and let Salvador Perez DH more, get more rest, and be more productive. Mike, with everything going on, this heated race the Royals are in, what's your theme for this week?
Oh, I went to those great philosophers. That the greatest philosophers of the early 2000s.
The true oracles of Omaha.
Emo punk scene. I don't know. The true oracles of Omaha. Jimmy Eat World. You guys remember that? You remember their hit, The Middle? Oh, that one.
You remember opening
their
lines.
Hit? Their hit, that one. The opening line, because it describes the Royals to a T. And then I thought the name of the song was also very apt. So it's, hey, don't write yourself off yet. It's only in your head. You feel left out or looked down on. Okay? The name of the song is The Middle, because that's where it feels like the Royals are right now. Right in the middle.
Yeah.
Stuck in the middle. Can't get to the mountaintop, but not fall into the bottom either. We'll see if they make it.
Interesting. Never thought you'd go to Jimmy Eat World.
Hey, had to do it. Never thought you'd go there. My first thought was the middle. So I just started thinking, what are songs about the middle? That
You're always directly on the nose, Mike.
Exactly.
Excuse me. I'm going with a classic, an album that Mike and I, and an artist that Mike and I grew up listening to, have loved for many, many years. Our mother turned us on to him when we were very young. And that is the great Jackson Browne with his biggest hit, Running on Empty. And you know the words. I'm taking the end of like a verse and the beginning of the chorus. I don't know where I'm running now. I'm just running on. Mike, feel free to do the backing vocals.
I'm not doing the backup
running
for you.
On, running on empty.
I'm not doing
running
that.
On, running blind, running on, running into the sun, but I'm running behind. This one should be obvious, right? Like,
then comes the massive guitar solo.
Massive. Steve, what is it? Steve Lindley? David Lindley. David Lindley comes in with the lap steel and just shreds. Yeah, the Royals are kind of, I mean, one of the themes we have of this is the Royals are pretty gassed, right? Like Salvador Perez is gassed. A lot of their pitching is gassed. They're trying to keep up. They're running on, but it looks a little bit like they're running on empty at times. Hopefully they can supercharge with a day off on Monday and do some damage at home this week. Royals Weekly is brought to you by Eric Oxer of West USA Realty. Do you have the same fantasy we do, retiring to a land of eternal summer? If so, you need to call Eric Oxer of West USA Realty pronto. He can help you transition to a lovely home in the Phoenix area and a life of fun in the sun.
I got a specialty swimsuit picked out for the next time I'm out there. Let's just say it's European cut, and I will not be asked back to the Phoenix area.
Eric was one of the top real estate agents in the Phoenix area to end 2024 because he gives all of his clients a personal experience focused entirely on their needs. With Eric Oxer of West USA Realty, it's not about him. It's about you. He's there to listen to you, work for you, and guide you through the ins and outs of buying and selling in the Phoenix area.
Buying in Phoenix is like eating a meal with me. It's a lot of fun if you take certain precautions.
You got to be careful. Find Eric Oxer of West USA Realty online at ericoxer.com. That's ERICKAUXIER.com. Or just give him a call or shoot him a text at 480-383-9745. That's 480-383-9745. If you're at all interested in what a life in the Phoenix area might hold, let him make the experience all about you. We all know the offense is putting up much better numbers since the trade deadline. New additions like Mike Yastrzemski and Adam Frazier are helping, and old additions like Vinny Pasquantino and Bobby Witt Jr. have been hot, which makes the offense click. But just as the offense takes off, the pitching is starting to sputter. Since August 1st, Royals pitching ranks 14th in team ERA at 4.11. That's a big drop-off from the first 4 months of the season. Mike, what's happening here? Why is the pitching falling apart right when the team needs it to not fall apart?
Yeah, injuries is the biggest issue, right? And whether that's, even though some of these guys haven't taken long stints on the IL, they've come back and not been as effective. We mentioned that with Lugo earlier. That's the biggest issue. But innings is right behind it, right? You and I think maybe briefly mentioned this last week or on the midweek episode. I can't remember. But if you look at this, it doesn't matter the guy you pick out. They are all pitching close to, if not over their maximum they've ever pitched in innings. It's a lot higher for Noah Cameron. It's going to be a lot higher for Bergert if it isn't already there. Lorenzen is just that way. He's an injury-prone kind of guy, and now you're stacking another lot of inning season on Wacha and Lugo, and we're seeing the breakdown of that, you know? And
the only reason Wacha and Lugo might not eclipse theirs is because they just set career highs last year.
Lugo when they threw over 200 innings last year.
Yeah. That's way
like
more
his
than he's
third season starting.
Wacha too, right? Like they had big career highs.
Yeah, and so I mean, Wacha's going to be up there. He's going to be right next to it. Wild stuff.
Yeah, and what that does is, I mean, when you think about it, we mentioned that Lugo hasn't been right since coming back from injury. Ragans and Bubic have both been out for now a long time. Bubic isn't coming back. There's hope, I guess, among the Royals that Ragans might make it back for a start or two. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't, but we'll see. Even their depth was tested immediately and continuously by the season-long absences of Alec Marsh and Kyle Wright. Immediately they lost two of their depth pieces right away, right? And so, I mean, there's a reason that when they went out at the trade deadline, the biggest thing they got was more starting pitching, even though it looked like at the start of the year that might be a solid strength for them. This pitching staff has just been decimated in ways that are like big and small. Like Lugo going on the IL for 2 weeks wasn't a huge deal until he came back and was terrible because he was still dealing with whatever the hell he's dealing with, right? Like, you know, Lorenzen keeps going on and off the IL like repeatedly, you know? They have to deal with all this sort of stuff. It's really taking its toll.
Now they're skipping Noah Cameron starts. I mean,
just on their performance. It's taking a toll on the performance on the field too. Mike, with that in mind, knowing the options that they have, what will the team need to do to get the pitching back on track for September?
You can try and get creative. And my thought was maybe you bring up Kolek and say, we're doing a 6-man rotation. Everybody gets an extra day as we ramp up for this. If you feel comfortable with him, they're in such an odd position because you have to win to stay in this playoff race. Usually teams that have to win don't expand to their 6th guy in a rotation because he's not as good. And so that's a tough one. Or you get even more creative, because this would take even more creativity, and you use Luinder Avila, a guy who can pitch multiple innings, and you use him strategically enough to say, well, we scored 8 runs in the first 3 innings of that Waka start. Avila's got the 4th. He's out. We're taking him out and dealing it. Or we got 8 scored on us. Whatever it is, he's got to be a guy they're willing to put in there and eat up some of those innings to showcase what he can be.
Or what if your 6th man is a bullpen game? What if you do something like that where Avila takes a bulk role and throws 3 to 4 innings.
That I would be completely okay with that, especially as you get in. Maybe you strategically do it. You're going to get a stretch of 2 weeks where it's Angels Twins here. You're going to get a stretch at the end. Although I don't know if you need the games at the end, you're not going to be able to do that stuff.
Right. That's true. If you need the games at the end, that may not, because that's why they're in the weird position they're in. They have that 13-game stretch, and then they get sort of 2 weeks of days off and stuff like that. But by then, you can't. It's too tough. It's too tough. My thinking is the big thing is getting Lugo back on track and getting Lugo right, or to some degree of right. Right now, it seemed like he went from dominant to swung to like almost unplayable. Like that's where we've swung to. If he could just find an equilibrium of some sort where he's given us, decent quality starts or 5 innings, giving up just 1 or 2 runs, either way, that'd be great. I noticed some stuff in his release point data that I looked at. Essentially, has 2 different release points in his most recent outing for every single pitch. And I don't know if that's him trying to make an adjustment in game. I don't know if there's just a problem finding his release point, but that wasn't the case back in the early part of the season when he was pitching well. It was all the pitches coming from the same release point and that sort of thing. So if it could be a mechanical fix, that'd be great. It'd be better than if it's kind of like a physical answer, because those take longer to fix and get better from. But if it's a mechanical thing, maybe they can make an adjustment for Lugo. Mike, big question, I guess if you want to look big picture here, is this a problem that will persist? We know that Lugo and Waka will be part of the rotation in 2026. Is that something we should be worried about to some degree?
I don't think so, because I don't think it's going to carry over. As long as their bodies don't break down and there's not some sort of major injury, I think an offseason will do a lot to help the recovery and to fix, maybe iron out some of the things you're talking about as far as ineffectiveness goes with Lugo. That's when you can really get in the lab and make mechanical changes. I don't want to call it easy, but, really get stuff done in the offseason, right? Because if they notice something like that, they're going to put a plan in place to fix that in the offseason. So I'm not worried about it as long as they come out of the season healthy. Then I think, you get them going back into the year next year, having ironed out some of the issues. Yeah, I think these guys are pros. Both of them can make those adjustments.
Oh, for sure. They've proven that over the course of their career. You're talking about 2 guys who had to sort of reinvent themselves in some ways. Lugo as a reliever, then as a starter again. Waka after experiencing a lot of injury earlier in his career. I think if anything, fans should be worried. I think they can think on the flip side of that and be maybe a little excited that young guys like Burgert and Cameron got significant MLB experience this year. And as a result, there's like an embarrassment of riches going into 2026. And so if assuming they keep Bubic, Ragans, Bubic, Lugo, Waka, Cameron, Burgert, Kolek will still be in the mix,
Marsh will
Ben
be
Gadurna,
back.
Marsh hopefully will be back. Hopefully. We don't know anything about why he's gone, but like Ben Gadurna's knocking on the door. Like they have quite a few options at that point, and that's before they do anything like re-sign someone like Lorenzen or something like that, And so it's probably a good thing that they got Burgert and Cameron and those guys tested a little bit this year, so the injuries kind of have a little bit of a silver lining in that regard. Royals Weekly is brought to you by All In Physical Therapy, who are happy to announce that they now offer strength and conditioning programs for youth athletes who want to gain an edge on the football field, basketball court, or baseball field.
If they had all that specialty training back in my day, I probably would have cracked that JV's second string punt team.
Yeah, you probably would have. I feel I'm confident. I'm confident you would have made it. Mm-hmm. And of course, All In Physical Therapy still offers the best in recovery from total joint surgeries and sports injuries with offices in Blue Springs, Lee Summit, and Belton. They'll help you take care of your recently repaired hips, knees, shoulders, elbows, you name it.
That was going to be my springboard into the league. Okay, think about how different my life would be right now.
If you were in the league?
Yeah.
I think the league would look a lot different. Like, it would just be like a black face or a black mark all over the league to have a guy like you in it.
No, I mean, it'd be pulled muscles and aching backs and bent over dudes puking a lot. That's all it would be.
Yeah, that's what it really is. It'd be more of a puke league. If you're interested in reaching the peak of your athletic performance or getting back to 100% from an injury, check out All In Physical Therapy at allin-pt.com. That's allin-pt.com. Or give them a call at 816-427-5300. That's 816-427-5300. It's a 6-game homestand this week, or for next week, or this week, as the Royals take on... I'm just going to cut that because I don't know what I was doing there. It's a 6-game homestand for next week as the Royals take on the Angels and Twins at home. Mike and I are headed out for one of those Twins games. That should be a bunch of fun. But first, the Royals need to take care of business against the Angels. Mike, tell us about the team that wasted Mike Trout's prime.
The Angels, the birthplace of Hud the commentator. 63-72, fourth in the AL West. It looked like they might be turning something around right there after the trade deadline, but that petered out. Offense, we didn't have any probables for this series, so we're just going to do a little brief thing here. We've got the offense for the Angels, 94 weighted runs created plus, which is 22nd in Major League Baseball. They've got the youngsters, Zach Neto. They've got Yohan Moncada, who I was very interested in the Royals signing this offseason. And Taylor Ward, who has been, he just got carted off the field today, Marc tells me.
Mm-hmm. Crashed into the wall.
Ouch. Yeah, Taylor Ward was slow to start, but boy, he picked it up and is really crushing the ball now. Hopefully he's okay. On the pitching side, 4.76 ERA, that's 27th in Major League Baseball. Yusei Kikuchi and Jose Soriano are having good years, ERAs in the mid-threes and over 150 inning pitched already for those guys. But after that, it gets really, really bad for the Angels pitching staff. So gotta be able to go in and sweep one of these two series, and I vote the Angels probably.
And I vote the Angels. Their pitching staff is just not very good, and that's the team you want to take advantage of. And so hopefully that ends up working out. And they probably are going to lose one of their best hitters for a stretch because getting carted off the field is a pretty serious thing. Anyway, after that, the Twins will come to town for a weekend series. Their offense is middle of the road, basically, 97 weighted runs created plus, tied for 17th in Major League Baseball, led by their fearless leader, Byron Buxton, and a young emerging rookie, Luke Keeschel, who is also having a really good year offensively.
He killed us in that last series.
We've seen how good Luke Keeschel can be. Matt Wallner also having a good year for them offensively, but not much going on offensively other than those three. They had some guys like Harrison Bader, but they traded him away. And so, we'll see for their offense. Pitching staff is really the thing that let the Twins down this year. In the past, they've relied on, Joe Ryan, Pablo Lopez, and stuff like that, but they really struggled this year. A 4.48 ERA as a team, 23rd in Major League Baseball. Pablo Lopez has been on the IL since June. Chris Paddock was terrible for them. Then they traded him. Simeon Woods Richards, who was like a promising young starter from their organization, has been bad. They're just having a tough year. Joe Ryan still having his usual good year, but everyone else seems to be struggling. We'll end this week's episode like we end every episode with the Just a Bit Outside segment, where we talk about something that's interesting to us outside the world of baseball. We both live very rich lives. We're both men of the world, men of culture. Mike, what did you have going on last week?
I had, nothing. I went to work. I did my life again this week. I'll do it again next week. No, the exciting thing for me this week was a chance to hang out with some of our friends from high school. I mean, where every one of those guys but one we went to high school with, I guess. Marc and I attended the an annual gathering of one of our friends who does something for college football kickoff weekend, and it got me thinking. Like, I set it up kind of as a mini vacation for my wife and I, because we did not take a vacation this year because we have a 3-year-old and traveling can be difficult with 3-year-olds. So we were like, you know what? We can have my mom watch them overnight. We got a hotel room up by my friend's house. And it was just so perfect because I got to go into that setting, and you've been sick and I've been sick recently, and a lot of stress starting my job, and my wife starting a new job and doing all that sort of stuff has been really stressful. And like going and hanging out with these 8 to 10 guys who we have known forever.
30 years, most of them.
Yeah, some of them 30 plus years we've known these guys, and just laughing. Like, I laughed so much and had so much fun in that environment. And then getting to go spend some quality time with my wife, and we, do things like go out to dinner like we did before we had a child, and do those kind of things. Just so rejuvenating. The laughter and the rest was so rejuvenating, and being around that group of people who I don't get to see often. I mean, there was a guy there who I hadn't seen in almost a decade, and some other people. I see these guys once or twice a year, most of them. It's just it's very nostalgic driven, because we do tell the same stories over and over again, and we do
Heard them 1,000 times.
Yep, and we do
there
talk
for
about
some
the
of them.
same subjects. Yeah, it always starts with, "Yeah, you remember that time? Remember when?" But it just was so refreshing for me and fun. It's been a long time since I had that much fun, and so yeah, get around your old people. I mean, the old friends, the ones you only get to see once a year or once a decade sometimes, and it can do a lot for you mental wise.
And for our younger listeners, this is just a notification that when you get older, you will only get to see those people you see every single day now, a couple times a year maybe. So cherish it. Cherish it. I had to tell my partner this when we first started dating. She was like still in that age where she expected things to be like they were in college in some ways. And I was like, you're going to see a lot of your friends like once, maybe twice a year now, because they're going to have kids. You're going to scatter. It's a thing. Anyway, I'm talking about something kind of similar, because I'm talking about college, because I went back to school this last week. UMKC, this was their first week back. So I got to teach and see a whole bunch of, new college students, fresh faces and all that sort of stuff. And every time that happens, I think about like what college does for people. And, a lot of people talk about, oh, you go to college, you get a job, or, oh, it's a waste of money or whatever. I don't know. There's like a debate or something. I don't really pay attention to it. But one of the things I do pay attention to is like the ways in which being in places like college, it's not just college, but I think college is the best place for it, because it just puts a bunch of different types of people around you. I always tell this to my students. College is the last best chance someone has to be around a ton of people different than them, right? Which is just such a valuable experience. Yeah, eventually you'll go into a workplace and you might be around some people who are a lot different than you, but you're not going to be exposed to like 50,000 people. You're going to work with 2 or 3 different people, and that's your job, But college gives you an opportunity to just be around tons of different people. And I suppose the military is similar to this as well, right? Like a bunch of people from a bunch of different backgrounds who are sort of different in a whole bunch of ways. And that is so valuable to shaping a perspective, to get to hear all these other perspectives. It's one of the reasons why I don't love things in college that actually force people together or bring people together who are very much alike, like sororities and fraternities. They tend to huddle people by how similar they are to each other. I think that's problematic. You should be actually doing the exact opposite. You should be trying to meet as many different people as you can to sort of gain their perspective. And now you've grown your own worldview, and it's amazing. And so I tell my students, seek those opportunities out. If you're an adult like me and you're out of college and stuff like that, you have to seek those opportunities out. You got to find different perspectives than yours and find ways to hear them and internalize them, so you can ultimately just keep growing more and more. I think that's why it's valuable.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. That's why I stayed there so long.
Yeah, me too. Me too, my friend. Not
Never
quite as long
wanted
as
to leave
you, but that's all we have for you this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe to that Royals Weekly Substack, royalsweekly.substack.com. We will be back again next week with more Royals discussion. Until then, be good to each other.
And go Royals.